Hi guys, this is the advisor and welcome back to my channel. Now, a few months ago, I put out two videos pertaining to the Firearms Licensing Authority in Jamaica and how they were placing Jamaican citizens at risk by not issuing them with firearms. And I showed how it is a fact that the Firearms Licensing Authority's main purpose is there to prevent decent citizens from getting guns to protect themselves. We have proven that. Now, I laid most of the blame at the foot of the head of the Firearms Licensing Authority, particularly in this most recent cases, Shane Darling, and I'd also place it at the board of directors of the FLA. Now, I made a mistake in the sense that I was laying all the blame where all the blame should never have been laid. And now I'm going to correct it and show you who is really, or who have been over the decades, been beating up the life of decent citizens in Jamaica by having them run the risk of being left to the mercies of the devil and the deep blue sea because they can't get a firearms license, not because they do not qualify, but because it is state policy. Now, in order to explain, guys, I know I have taken blogging to a highly intellectualized place. Now, I'm going to be saying something, and I know it may look like I've flown off at a tangent, but I'm not. I like to lay things out very clearly and in a very lucid way so that people can follow me from point A to B for you to understand. And sometime I'm going to have to take you back. So just stay with me because I'm taking you in a very syllogistic way from point A to B so you can fully understand. Now, in feudal times, a lot of people might not understand there was a system of governance across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East called feudalism. Now, feudalism is a system where you have a king, and that king is supported by the king's men. In other words, they're supported by the nobility. And the nobility are those that keep the kings in place, the kings and the royal family then in place. So beneath the king, you would have the lords, the dukes, the earls, the counts, the marquis, the viscounts, and the barons, and all of that, and the church, of course. Now, those people are the ones who keep the king in position. They are the buffer between the knights and the peasants and the king. Now, beneath these nobility, you have the knights. These are the ones who can bear the arms. And these men who bear the arms, they are the ones who protect nobility and, in effect, protect the king. Now, the people at the lowest end are called the serfs, are the peasants. Now, these serfs, they are not allowed to carry weapons or anything that can pose a threat to the king or to the knights or to the dukes and earls or other members of the nobility. They are not allowed to carry arms, not the peasants. They banned spears, they banned swords. In other words, if you were a farmer or a miller, or you made houses, or you tilled the land, or anything like that, you were not allowed to carry sword or spears. bows and arrows? No. If you're a hunter, then you could carry ordinary bow where you can use on a deer, but you weren't allowed to carry things like a crossbow, because a crossbow is something that was much deadlier and more accurate than an ordinary bow. So the way nobility run back in feudal times, we're talking about 12th century, 13th century coming down. There were always, the peasants were never allowed to carry arms. You could only carry knife small enough or large enough rather to do your job, and if your job didn't include using any knife at all, then you couldn't have one. Or but all right, put it this way: everybody in those times could carry a knife because it was a knife they used to eat with. In those days, they didn't use spoons or forks; just a knife and your hand. Anyway, now if we look at this nobility, in Japan, that feudal system exists. All over Europe, that feudal system exists, and in Asia, in China, in Vietnam, in Russia. As a matter of fact, the feudal system only cut out the last country that had feudalism, 1917, and that was in Russia. So feudalism has been on this earth for several hundred years, nearly 1,000 years of feudalism. Now, them have a saying, say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. And now I'm going to tell you how things has remained the same for most countries, for most parts of the world to this blessed day. Now, we might not have a king in Jamaica, but what we have is a prime minister. Now, underneath the prime minister, we might not have dukes and earls and counts and viscounts and marquises and counts and lords. But what we have are the quote-unquote nobility, which would be like the MPs and members like now, I'm not calling the names of these organizations because these organizations are directly involved in the whole makeup of this. But this is just to say, for example, members of the PSOJ, all of the members up there would be able to carry arms. Because, members of like the Jamaica Manufacturers Association, Jamaica Exporters Association, members of the banking sector, and things like those people would be part of the, for want of a better word, the nobility. And the church. Now, that structure has to be protected because that structure is the people that will protect the prime minister. Now, underneath these people, we have the army, the military, the police, and the soldiers. Now, the police and soldiers can carry arms, but we have to realize that members of the police and military, they are also part of the peasantry, because no rich man picnic going at the army or the police force. It's pure poor people picnic join the police force and the army. So they have the lords above them. But remember, the people who are the warrior class, the dukes and the earls, also head the Jamaica Constabulary Force and the Jamaica Defense Force. So, therefore, the military, or the members of the military, can bear arms. And the government, they bear arms owned by the government. The arms which are borne by the military, the knight class, those knights, they bear the arms that are owned by the government, the king. And by the king, I refer now to the prime minister and the parliament. Now, the peasants down below which is the ordinary man in the streets, are not allowed to bear arms. He does not carry. The government does not allow the peasantry to be armed. It is not allowed in any repressive system like feudalism, because the people at the bottom in the peasantry, they are serfs. They are there to be exploited. Their labor, their property, their sexuality, everything about the peasantry is there to be exploited. And you cannot have people an oppressive regime in any society that would want to see the peasantry armed. They don't want to arm the peasantry because they are afraid that the peasants might rise up one day under the repression. So we have got to understand that there is a reason, there is a system, there is a method to the madness. The peasants are not supposed to be armed. You cannot arm decent citizens in Jamaica. No repressive regime in Jamaica would want to have a decent set of Jamaican citizens carrying guns. Even though the government cannot protect the decent citizens out here, but no matter how worthy you are or what the need is for you to have a firearm, the government does not want you to have it. So they think long and hard. To the best of my knowledge and to what the person, my link within the FLA, where that person is no longer there, they are telling me that for every 12 persons who applies for a firearm, one get out of every 12. He said that's a rough estimate. And if only 1 in 12 get firearm out of everybody who, as far as I'm concerned, who have applied, don't tell me say there are so many people in this country who are undesirables. But let me tell you one thing. The decent citizens of I repeat, no repressive regime, no regime that are criminal or that are evil or that want to suppress its people, they fear decent people. All corrupt regimes on earth fear arming decent people because they do not want decent people to rise up, and that is their fear. Decent people among their very warriors, among the knights, so to speak, among the knights and the warriors that is referred to now the people in the police force and the military, not even them they want to bear arms, because only 1 in every 9 policemen or soldier who applies for a firearm gets it. 1 in 9. The government will not allow poor people picnic who are their protectors to own their own guns. In other words, I will give you a weapon that I own. The government will give you the weapon that it owns. And when they give you that weapon is not there to necessarily protect the peasants and the serfs down here. The purpose of that weapon is to protect the nobility and the king. In other words, to protect the prime minister, the members of parliament, and those up top. The rest of the people, they do not really care about, because members of that same nobility, members of that same, the knights, in other words, the protectors, the warrior class, the police and the soldiers, the reason for them being there and the reason for them being set up is to protect the king or protect the nobility. Understand that. The fact that the police protect the citizens is just incidental. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to protect the upper heads. So they are there to also regulate the society to see that it doesn't go into chaos. But they are not necessarily there to protect the citizens. Their main role is to keep the society vulnerable. Remember, all members of government, they live in gated communities, they have their money, they have their security paid for by the peasants down here, and they do not need to be concerned about what goes on down there. There are so many of them. If gunmen even kick off certain doors and dirt certain people, what? We still have so many more that it does not really matter. So the point I'm making here is the reason why the FLA was set up, the specific reason for the setting up of the FLA was to keep guns out of the hands of decent citizens. Surprisingly, that's what they are there for. I repeat, the reason for setting up the Firearms Licensing Authority is to keep guns out of the hands of decent citizens. Now, let me make you understand this. If the FLA was not doing what Andrew or other PNP governments, any government, because this is something that is not unique to the Andrew Holness regime. Every government that has ever been in administration in Jamaica have always denied the ordinary citizens the right to bear arms. They try their best to keep the guns out of the hands of decent citizens, even though the security forces they have set up to protect them are unable to do so. So while we are here blaming the FLA for not issuing firearms, you've got to remember one thing. If Shane Darling or if the FLA had not been doing what the government had set them out to do, they would have been called in a long time ago and they would have changed. But the reason why things have not changed is because, believe me, that is what the administration have set up the FLA to do, to deny decent citizens the right to bear arms. And we've got to understand, there's a link. As I said before, no evil government, no crooked government is going to allow decent citizens to bear arms. Why? Because they fear that one day these same citizens would rise up. No set of decent citizens is going to rise up on a government that is decent and respectable and are doing the right things. So they fear decent citizens, but they don't fear gunmen. No corrupt government fear gunmen. They don't. Why? Gunmen and corrupt governments have this unwritten rule. They don't have to write it down. They know that they protect each other. Here is why. You see, decent citizens cannot be corrupted. They will stick to their honor and their principles and their ethics and their morals. And corrupt governments fear people who have those standards. You see, they are not concerned about gunmen having guns really, They may appear to do, but they don't. Because here is why. Remember, in JLP time, they were funding PNP bad men. Do not forget. Do not forget also that in PNP time, the PNP government was funding JLP bad men. Let us not forget that the biggest contracts Dudus in his time ever gotten, he didn't get it from Labour government. He got them from his biggest contracts. The Koch family got them from the PNP. And here is why. You see, gunmen do not shoot at politicians. Gunmen do not go, it's an unwritten rule. They don't go there. As a matter of fact, I can tell you this. The last time Adan make the mistake of shooting at a politician, and that man was Bulby Bennett. Bulby shot up a motorcade that was Babsy Grange was supposed to be in. Well, she wasn't actually in the motorcade at the time, but she would have been in there. I was expected to pass in that series of vehicles. Bulby sent men to shoot it up. 3 men died. I think Bunman was one of them. Now, National Security Minister at the time was Peter Phillips. Peter Phillips said, okay, really? You shoot after an MP? You are a peasant. You can't shoot after an MP. And what? Peter Phillips make sure say, go dig him out of him hole and dirt him. Declare for that. No matter if you are on my team. No matter if you are on my team. You're a peasant. You know, shoot after MP, no MP. We up here, so we are nobility. You know, do that. So in other words, that does not happen. Members of the nobility will protect members of the other nobility on any side of garden house. So and then again, you have to understand that gunmen in gangs, even if they are aligned to a political party, they will fire their guns for any side. They have no loyalty. Gunmen has no loyalty. Decent citizens have loyalty. And decent citizens will not do certain things because they are loyal to country. And they have a sense of dignity, a sense of pride, and they have a place where they draw the line, and they won't do silly things. Now, these are the type of people that Jamaican governments fear, whether both PNP and JLP. They fear decent people being armed. They don't fear gunmen. Gunmen not going to shoot after them. And gunmen serve their purpose because they can use any gunmen on any side, give them money and have them do their evil deeds. Because any laborite in power can get any PNP for the right price to go and shoot up anywhere he wants. Likewise, any PNP government power can get any laborite to go and do his dirty deeds, same way with a gun, whenever he likes. He cannot, these two parties cannot get a decent citizen to do that. So they fear decent citizens, which is why they'll not give decent citizens arms. Not even the decent peasants. Not even the decent peasants who work for them in the police force and in the army. You are still a peasant. You are here to protect me. You are here to protect me up here. You are here to protect the king or the prime minister, as the case may be. And this is not a laborite thing. This is any and every administration that have ever run this country from the beginning of time. They do not want. So it's a policy. And when you see a government like this, you know that government doesn't really care about its people. They are wicked, they are cruel, and they are thieves. And Jamaican government have always been thieves. And they don't want the ordinary citizens to ever become wise or to ever think of them that way or to ever get this. Because you arm decent citizens, it's to the peril of the government who are doing the madness. So understand that. I said that to say this. Let's not blame Shane Darling. Let's not blame the FLA. They are doing exactly what they were sent there to do by Andrew Holness and by the government before him and by the government before him. However, I have spoken with Joseph Patterson of the UIC, and I had a long talk with him recently. And one of the things that came out in that conversation was what he would do in a situation. Now, Joseph Patterson has told me, no, I'm not no member of the IUC, and you know, I put out some really negative things about the UIs, about Joseph Patterson. But me no fear nobody. And if there's good, I'm going to say it. If there's bad, I'm going to say it. Now, I'll say this good about Joseph Patterson. He has said to me that if he gets into power, what he would do, he would ensure that every single decent citizen in this country get a firearm, hands down. And he said he doesn't see why any policeman who is good enough to carry the government's gun and not being able to carry one of his own. He doesn't see why a soldier who is trustworthy enough to carry the government's gun cannot carry one of his own. He said he doesn't see why any farmer who is suffering pretty larceny should not have a firearm, and he will see that every farmer who has need for one gets one. Now, I love that. This is something, and this sets this man apart from both the PNP and the JLP. So I would say, I want to pass this message on. Farmers out there, look at Joseph Patterson and all you other people who have applied for firearms and know you are decent, honest citizens who want the right to carry arms. Look to Joseph L. Patterson. And all you Jamaicans who are afraid to come home because you can't get firearms, Joseph Patterson say the buck stops with him and he's going to make that change. Now, I'm not a mouthpiece for the UIC, but if I see the JLP or the PNP or the UIC do something bad, I'm going to say it. And if I see something good, I'm going to say it for anybody. I don't care no fear nor favor with anybody. So, Joseph Patterson, if that's what you will do, you'll be the man of the hour where politics is concerned. So, guys, think about what I said and like, share, leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.